Greetings. You have your ticket? You don't have one? No problem, my friend. Hit the subscription button below and come on in. Hi, everyone. DFG here with Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys. Today is a rainy day, and it's a rainy day in April. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to tell you why I bring that up in just a second. I don't know if you can see out there. Well, that's me there, but anyway, it is raining and it's April. But more important, this is a month of memorial that I try to always remember and never forget. And this is the month that was the beginning of the Rwandan genocide. As you guys may remember, back in 1994, in the small country of Rwanda, over anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million Rwandans were killed, namely mostly Tutsi of the Tutsi tribe. There were two major tribes, ethnic groups inside of Rwanda, Tutsis and Hutus. And unfortunately, the Hutsis killed between 800,000 and 1 million Tutsi Rwandans. And if you've ever seen the movie Hotel Rwanda or Sometimes in April, either one of those two movies really gives you an in-depth idea of what it was like to be able to have to live through, the horror, the mass carnage, the suffering of many of the citizens, of that country. And as I think about it in reflection, I remember my life being so busy in 1994, up and coming leader, and I remember hearing about it in the world news, but it was for a different place somewhere in Africa, and quite frankly, based off of the information, if I heard, it never dawned on me, as a young leader that people were being slaughtered, raped, and maimed. And it was really sad. And I want to give you a quick little history on it, because for every genocide, every mass, killing, there's always a root cause somewhere that instigated it. And in the case of Rwanda, just as so that and to help you understand, what jealousy and envy and greed can create. Because if it happened then, and I'm sure it happened probably in every millennium, every probably century, and probably every decade, there's been some type of mass genocide going on somewhere around the world. But since I'm talking about, Rwanda, I will give you a quick history of what happened in Rwanda. How did it all start? Where did it start? And primarily it started, when Europe started colonizing, all of Africa. And Europe, and this was probably somewhere between the late 1700s, early 1800s. And King Leopold, and he was the Belgian emperor, right about 1870, saw an opportunity to use the Congo Basin, and as not only as a trade route, but also he saw an opportunity to enrich Belgium with the resources, mainly up in Rwanda, would have been coffee, and he saw an opportunity to really exploit that land, exploit the natives in that land. And what he did, he along with the Catholic Church, he went in and pushed Christianity, amongst the natives there, and forced them into slave labor. And, in the name of, civilization, in the name of, the redeeming of their souls, that if they accepted this religion and accepted, the Belgianese authority, that their land would become more prosperous, their souls would make it into heaven and all will be good for the Rwandans. Of course, that's not what happened. He did exploit the land, did enrich him and in Belgium as a whole was enriched, through the blood and sacrifice, the enslaving of Rwandans. And you may ask, okay, all right, well, what did that have to do with the, Rwandans killing Rwandans? Well, during that time, with the Europeans or the Belgianese, I think is what they call themselves, looked at a certain group, or the Tutsi group, and because the Tutsi ethnic group had a lot of European features, their noses were different, some of them different eyes, skin complexion, things of that nature. And what they did was the Tutsis, who were the minority of the two ethnic groups in the country, they were propped up by the Belgianese, and they were pretty much given, all of the so-called preferred jobs and responsibilities through the colonizing of that nation. You've heard Malcolm X kind of talks about it a little bit in America. He talks about, the slave plantation, and he talks about, the slaves that worked in the field and the slaves that worked in the houses. And the slaves that worked in the houses were treated better than the slaves that worked out in the fields. Well, it was very similar to that. The Tutsis, who, even though they were in minority, they were given authority and given the prestigious positions throughout the land. And most of those positions were put in position where they were taskmasters over the majority group, the Hutus. And back in 1960, when Africa started to overthrow colonialism, and began to liberate itself, Belgium finally, released their authority, but they empowered the Tutsis to be the governors of their assets in that country, along with, a small standing army in Rwanda. And then ultimately, in the late 80s, early 1990s, the Belgian army pulled out of there and then left, the Tutsis and the Hutus there, more or less to figure out how they were going to unite themselves. Well, the Hutus were so embittered by the way that the Tutsis had treated them for over a century, for over 100 years, that they decided there was an incident where the president of Rwanda at that particular time, who happened to be a Hutu, was assassinated, when his plane was shot down. And so all of that animosity that was balling up, for all those decades with the Hutus, that they decided to take it out on the Tutsis. And for 100 days, they went through murdering, maiming, and raping their fellow Tutsi Rwandans, to the point where that, again, almost 1 million of those people died. And it was very sad. A lot of children, it was really, even, and I brought up the religious aspect of it because, that's something that we should never forget, the way religion has been used to massacre people, not just Christianity. They've done that using Islam, they've used that Hinduism, Arabs, many other groups. So I don't want to single out Christianity, but Christianity played a very, very violent role in creating the hostilities inside of the country of Rwanda, even to the point that when the Hutus were going, the Hutus were going around, and looking for Tutsis to kill. There were two particular churches in Rwanda, Catholic churches, that the priests or the bishops that were over those churches literally gave, the Tutsis, who they should have been given protection to, literally gave them over to, the Hutu vigilantes to rape and murder. Again, men, women, and children. And so I share that story with you because I think it's important that, number one, we don't forget them. I mean, I'm not an African, and you've heard me say that before. And in this instance, it has nothing to do with me being an African as much as it has to do with, again, paying homage and remembering, the suffering of those people and understanding how it happened, why it happened, and hopefully remembering those causes so that it never happens again. Although I fear, the things that are going on in other countries around the world, including this country, I can foresee a day where bigotry, will create a genocide here, right here in this country. And but again, who knows the future, right? But this I will say that least we forget. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And the past can teach us all of the horrible things that has happened around the world, including in America. But the past can also teach us how to be on guard to make sure that those things don't recreate themselves. Therefore is why you hear me, or hitherto, why you hear me bring up a lot of things that I bring up as it relates to some of the biases and the bigotry and the pretending that these things don't exist in the country. A lot of people tell me, well, why are you bringing that up? You're just playing right into the narrative. That's what they want to do, divide Americans. And, you go through all of that. But, denying something exists does not mean that it does not exist. All right? You can put your head in the sand, as the old saying goes. But if you stick your head in the sand, all you're going to do is get kicked in your ass. And that's what happens when we ignore history or we try to pretend that the obvious is not the obvious. And, I talk about it, and I'm going to continue to talk about it because I want to expose evil for what evil is. And I've always felt this way from a little child. I believe that, Yahweh put something inside of me, to make me see it and allow me to feel it, in my soul, feel the pain of it. And therefore, I don't have the grace of not being able to talk about it. I do have the conviction and the passion to, not only to speak towards it in any opportunity I've ever been given to try to do something about it, as is now even talking about, a place halfway around the world in Africa on this, day, in April. So just a little history. You can always look up some more information around it. But if nothing else, don't forget, sometimes in April, Hotel Rwanda and the Rwandan genocide, and almost 1 million people died, because of greed and selfishness and bigotry and self-hatred as well. That was a byproduct of greed, bigotry, and selfishness. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon. DFG, get in flight. Bye now.